been an entrepreneur by spirit. After over 2 decades in the corporate world, wanted to do something else, but during the COVID shutdowns was not an ideal time to try and make a switch. So I had very little experience with pools other than swimming in them. So the thought of shifting careers during this time, during this point in my life, after 20 years in the corporate world, was very scary. But the folks at Origin Clear made it very simple to walk right into an opportunity that allows me to make money, like right away, and be profitable within the first month. Typical drain, but they're going to drain your pool and it's going to potentially risk cracking. So that crack can lead to thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars in fees. Potentially I've heard anywhere from like $6,000 to $20,000 for maintenance and repair of structural type cracks. The advantages of this process are there's zero risk because all the water stays in the pool and it just flows right through the trailer and goes right back in with not affecting the water level. So I don't ever risk any kind of structural issues to the pool whatsoever. Saving and recycling all that water, it's a huge impact for the environment, especially here in the desert where there's always a constant drought. And then also the results are actually better than doing a drain and fill because our process removes the chlorine that come in with a bunch of other things. This takes all of that out of there and you have a perfectly balanced body of water. Honestly, it sells itself. As of right now, I have a rolling billboard behind me here with the trailer, the phone number, the website, a lot of pool professionals, whether it's the weekly pool maintenance guys or the pool stores around the valley. When folks go in and they need to change their water, or in the past required to drain their pool. So this is starting to become more and more talked about with pool professionals, and they'll offer this out to their customers, and I get a lot of calls that way. It was the cheapest, easiest, most streamlined business I've ever started with the least amount of overhead and the maximum amount of profits, honestly.
Hi, and welcome back to The Gold Mine. Our next segment, I am so excited to present to you an interview I had with Riggs Eckelberry, who is the CEO of Origin Clear. We had a wonderful talk on his journey through entrepreneurship and also his business, Origin Clear. Let's listen to the interview. Were you raised in an environment of entrepreneurship?
You know, my dad was a classic, Mad Men kind of guy. He was that generation that was, you came out of the war and you joined a company, in this case Procter & Gamble, and you kind of did your thing. But he always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And my grandfather was, again, a lawyer who wanted to be an entrepreneur. So there's all this desire in the family to be entrepreneurs, but I'm the one who actually did it.
What caused you to realize you wanted to take that pathway?
Well, I started out, in the nonprofit space actually, and even ended up being a ship captain in the 70s. And I got to the early 80s and I realized that I really felt like I had a mission to do something with technology, that technology could transform the world, which we know it has, not always for the better. And so I decided to jump in with both feet first. And so it was not so much that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, is that I wanted to go all out in technology. And I'm the kind of guy that will just, jump in and then go, well, wait a minute, is the water deep enough, right?
What was your first challenge that you came across starting the road of entrepreneurship?
By far the worst one was capital. I got myself way deep in Manhattan with like 12 people on payroll and cash flowing the whole business. I was doing computerizing companies in Manhattan. And at the time, everybody was being computerized. And really what ended up happening is that I lost faith in doing that because I didn't realize how much, let's say you get a company for the first time, you computerize them, well, you're going to keep them for maybe 20 years. And I didn't really fully realize that. And so I was looking at these incredibly tough implementations and going, this is ridiculous. So long story short is that I ended up giving that company to my best salesman, and he's a multimillionaire today. So, good for him. And that's really when I decided I needed to know more about how, just maybe learn before doing a little bit. And I spent the next few years learning a lot about marketing and business. And then I ended up in the .com, which was amazing. So big learning experience in the 80s. Cash flow problems, discouragement, which really was unnecessary, just really wasn't looking far enough in the future. And I think that's a big lesson is what about your business model can have a long-term annuity, a long-term cash flow from from customers, and get that business model. Don't just sell something and go away. That's really, really hard.
Okay. So what was your first inspiration that gave you the idea to create Origin Clear?
Well, it was actually really interesting because I'd been in the .com. I was a software guy, and now we come to the early 2000s, and I got involved with a company that was a software company, and I was the number 2, and we were taking it to the NASDAQ. In fact, we did. It went on the NASDAQ soon after I left it. But I got it all set up, and I was very restless, and I wanted to be a CEO. And a fund, this is, watch what you ask for. They said, sure, you can be a CEO. And so, excuse me, I ended up joining what was then called Origin Oil as co-founder, funded by this VC firm. And the weird thing is that we started out in algae as a biofuel, and only later turned repurposed into water when algae became basically, way too early as a fuel. So I guess my inspiration really was that I wanted to finally be a CEO of a public company, and watch what you ask for is what I always say.
This is not on the list of questions, but explain what this company is and what they do, what they offer.
Sure. So Origin Clear today is a company that is probably the most disruptive water company out there today, because what we have a great technology for doing water treatment in new and special ways. We have a wonderful manufacturing site in Texas, but it gets more interesting because we've really become the number 1 company that delivers to the new decentralized water treatment. Just like energy has become decentralized and telephones and computers, now water is becoming decentralized. And so we have these modular prefabricated water systems that get delivered on a truck, dropped in, and it's a revolution, kind of a Henry Ford type revolution for the water industry. And that is, I think, finally the kind of disruption that I'm looking to do in the water industry, because the water industry does not want to be disrupted, but it needs to be.
Awesome. Did you have any fears, or just name one fear you remember the most starting out as an entrepreneur, and what did you do to conquer it, and what advice would you give to others on conquering fear?
There is a dread that comes up every 2 weeks. Payroll.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. I was like, oh my God, how do I get to, because again, it was self-funding. And 2 things I would say. Number 1, I had the opportunity to get funded, and I turned these opportunities down. So do get funding. It's a good thing. Number 2 is there's ways, I really didn't need to give up. This was my big learning experience at the time back in the 80s, which is, gosh, it's already 40 years ago. And that is that, you don't have to fail. You can persist, you can figure things out. And what it taught me, though, was a lot of toughness. I became incredibly tough after that. I was like, if I can handle trying to meet, a 12-person payroll in Manhattan every 2 weeks, I probably do anything.
Okay. Okay, so a young adult. I mean, I don't know if you've heard, but they've been talking about the colleges have their numbers have dropped, and the community college have dropped the most, and that a lot of students have dropped out. They're not going back. And I personally, I mean, people are shocked, but I'm like, so we see the government shut down, we saw recession, we've seen people who worked at a job of 30 years and then out of nowhere they get laid off. And it's like, so they keep saying, go to college, get a job, that's your promise. But we keep seeing things in now in this pandemic that a job is not a promise. And so, what advice would you give someone who's been told you need to just get a job, but they're saying, I really want to try this entrepreneurship thing, and they're not getting any help from anyone, no encouragement from anyone? What words can you give them to at least a first step? Because we know you can't give them every step. The first step they can take to start their idea.
Well, this is, the great points, by the way. And by the way, I love community colleges. It's terrible what's happening. I think community colleges are better than four-year colleges, in my opinion, because you get more concentrated benefit. Also, of course, trade schools. But the first step, I think, is figure out, what do you like, right? Are you a natural marketer, salesperson? Do you like to make things? I have a good friend who makes amazing, conference tables. I mean, he made one the other day out of rosewood, which is the guitar wood. The entire conference table was out of guitar wood. Stunning. He loves that, right? And he's made a business, and his wife does the selling, and it works. Why? Because they have high integrity. It's what he loves to do. So too often people go, oh, I'm going to go sell on Amazon, and turns out you don't really like it, right? So you got to find, I think, what you like to do. And that's where I think it's worth apprenticing, getting, just going out there and getting jobs in different fields that may not be high pay, but just to get you into an industry and get a feel for it. Do I like being a stockbroker? Do I like this? Do I like that? And I think that is better than just rushing in and deciding you can do X, Y, and Z. Personally, I love I love marketing. I think it's the way you can build huge successes is by doing marketing in a way that hones in on real needs. And I just think it's becoming more and more powerful these days with the social media and so forth. But other people might not be into that. So it's really start with that, and then my second thing is, if you have a good basic education, then I think college, unless you're going to be a professional, is less and less important. What you need to do is go apprentice in the area that you like. And you might not get paid much, but early on is when you don't have much bills, right? You don't have that mortgage and you don't have kids and so forth. So make the investment in yourself early on, and get to know the industry. And you might find out, what, I don't like stock brokerage so much. It's kind of whatever. So because, people think, many times in my career, I've thought, oh, I really screwed the pooch now. And I realized that careers are long. They go on and on and on and on. I was a ship captain in 1975, right? 1974, 75 at 22. That was that's, almost about 45 years ago. And I thought that I'd learned a lot. No, I hardly knew anything. So I think that the important thing is to be willing to experience a lot of things, find out what you really love to do, and focus on that.
Thanks for that. So in the process of creating Origin Clear, if you can remember, a mistake you made, and what did you learn from that mistake?
All right. The biggest mistake I made was that it's very hard to create a good engineering team. It's probably the toughest thing there is, be it software or brick and mortar, either way. And I tried to create one out of thin air, and it was very, very hard. In retrospect, since I had funding, it would have been smart to just purchased a small company with existing team. Buying versus building is very, very smart, because it takes years to build things. Now, maybe you don't have cash, so how do you do it? Well, you still can do partnerships, you still can do outsourcing, all kinds of ways. So the number one thing is that you've got to have a good, if you're selling a product or a service, it's got to be super high quality. So you got to make sure that your delivery capability is excellent, right? So look at people who try and sell Amazon and they end up with crappy stuff from China, and they're in their living room trying to repackage thousands of things. I know my brother did that. He's like, kill me now. So you want to have good quality because you're gonna die if you don't. And that's what I went through. And you know, now I have a good engineering team, amazing, because we acquired a company finally in 2015. So that's the thing, is really look for the quality. And that was the number one mistake we made when we started.
Amazing. Last question. If there is an entrepreneur you can think of, dead or alive, you can sit and have a conversation with, who would it be, why, and name one something you would ask them.
My childhood hero was Ferdinand de Lesseps, who dug the Suez Canal, and amazing entrepreneur. And then he went and tried to dig the Panama Canal, and what defeated him, of course, was the yellow fever at the time. And the Americans finished the job because they finally had vaccinations for it. And I would sit down with him and you know, ask, well, you know, how'd you raise all that money? I mean, it was expensive. And he raised these bonds to build the Suez Canal, and it worked out great. And then he had this monumental failure with the Panama Canal. And I would want to know, you know, like, you knew that there were illnesses in the jungle in Central America, so what were you going to do about it, right? Egypt is not Panama, right? So I would say I really want to know how come he went down that road and ended up failing the way he did. But I've a man with immense drive, and I think he'd look at the Suez Canal is an amazing canal. It's just, to this day, straight as an arrow through the desert. Did a great job.